Rain turns the highway into a black ribbon, glossy as spilled ink, and my headlights keep catching little flashes, puddles, broken glass, the silver blink of a guardrail sign like the road is trying to signal me in Morse code. I'm standing in the shoulder's thin strip of gravel where the world smells like wet asphalt and cold pine, and the night feels too wide for a single crime scene. A body lies farther up near the ditch line, mostly hidden under a tarp that ripples when the wind sighs. Red herrings live for weather like this rain that erases footprints, wind that moves things just enough to make your timeline feel like a bad dream. I'm Theo Morgan, and I'm following whatever the storm didn't wash away, hoping the truth is heavier than water. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, drop your location and your local time in the comments. I love seeing how far these late-night cases travel while the rest of the world pretends sleep is a simple hobby. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The first thing I notice after the obvious fact that someone is dead and the universe is being dramatic about it is how carefully the scene is arranged. Not carefully like a neat desk, carefully like a stage set. The victim is placed just so, angled toward the road like a warning sign no one asked for. The patrol cruiser's light bar paints everything in slow, pulsing colors, and the rhythm makes the trees look like they're blinking at me. A rookie in a raincoat too big for his shoulders holds the tape line and tries to look like he's not shivering. He fails, but it's an honest failure. "Detective Morgan," he says, voice cracking around my name like it's a difficult password. I give him a nod and duck under the tape. The tarp is still on, but I don't lift it yet. I never rush that part. There's a moment, right before you see what happened, where the case is still pure, still only shapes and angles and the quiet fact that something is wrong. Once you look, your brain starts assigning meaning too fast. It's like opening your phone to check one notification and waking up 40 minutes later watching a video of a guy pressure washing a driveway in another country. Not that I'm speaking from experience, obviously. The scene tech, Marisol, crouches by the edge of the shoulder with a flashlight and a little orange evidence marker. She looks up at me, water beading on her lashes, expression flat in the way that says she's already made 3 mental lists and a 4th one is forming. "Roadside," she says. "No wallet in the pockets we can access. Phone's gone. 1 casing found so far." And she tilts her light toward the guardrail post. At first, I think it's just rainwater and grime. Then I see it. A coin, pressed into a thin seam where the metal meets the post, wedged like someone wanted it to be found but didn't want it to fall out. It's old, tarnished, and not the kind of thing you accidentally carry around unless you're the type who keeps receipts from 2013. Just in case. Marisol points with a gloved finger, careful not to touch it. And that wasn't there earlier. Patrol says the rain started before they arrived, so someone put it here close to the call. A calling card. I lean in, not too close, just enough for my eyes to catch the details. The coin has been scratched deliberately, lines carved into the face in a pattern that isn't random. Not art, exactly. More like a message someone wrote with impatience. "Take photos," I say, soft. "Close-ups, multiple angles, then bag it." Marisol nods. "Already on it." The patrol sergeant, a thick-necked man named Lyle, who looks like he's been carved out of stubbornness, moves up beside me. "We're thinking robbery," he says, but his tone doesn't believe it. "Robbery doesn't usually leave jewelry," I reply, and I gesture toward the victim's wrist, where a watch band is visible beneath the tarp's edge. "Unless the robber is picky or sentimental," Lyle grunts. "Or stupid." "Stupid is common," I say, "but this feels curated." I finally lift the tarp. Not all the way, just enough to see the face and upper chest. The victim is a man in his 40s, maybe, hair plastered down by rain. There's a dark stain on the fabric near the sternum, not graphic, just the quiet evidence of physics and bad decisions. His eyes are half-lidded, and his expression is odd, almost calm. The kind of calm you only get when everything's already over. I take a slow breath, and the air tastes like wet metal and pine needles. "Single shot?" I ask. "Looks like it," Marisol says. "No exit we found. We'll confirm at autopsy." I nod, and I scan the ground around him. Rain makes everything shine. but it also makes patterns harder to read. Still, the shoulder holds a few secrets, if you look the right way. Near the ditch line, a faint impression tread marks leads off at a diagonal, as if a vehicle pulled in, paused, then corrected its angle. I crouch, careful, and angle my flashlight across the gravel to catch the edges. Cast that, I tell Marisol, before the rain chews it up. On it. That's the grounded part of the work people forget. You don't solve mysteries with vibes. You solve them with measurements, with plaster casts, with the brutal honesty of a timeline, and with chain of custody paperwork that could make a monk weep from boredom. If I ever run out of bedtime content, I'll just read evidence logs out loud. Instant sleep, possibly forever. Lyle watches me look. You think it's him, he says quietly. He doesn't say a name, but the air fills in the blank anyway. Around here, there's always a him. A story parents tell their teenagers like a curfew threat. A figure who moves just outside the law's reach and treats rules like suggestions written in pencil. I say, someone wants us to think it's him. Lyle's eyebrows pinch together. Why would anyone want that? I straighten slowly, joints protesting the way they do when you've spent too many nights hunched over someone else's tragedy. Because it buys time. It points us toward a legend instead of a person. Marisol finishes photographing the coin and glances up. These scratches, she says, they're not random. They're like tally marks, but spaced weird. I take another look at the pattern through the camera's screen. The lines make clusters 3, then 2, then 3 again, separated by a longer slash. It almost resembles a crude cipher. The outlaw, if it is him, has always loved performance. That's what the old files say. Not just crime, but theater. He doesn't simply break the law. He mocks it, like he's in a one-man show and the audience is every badge in the county. Some criminals want money. Some want control. This one, if the stories hold, wants the law to notice him. He wants the chase. He wants the myth. And detectives still argue whether that kind of signature is arrogance or insecurity dressed up as swagger. A gust of wind shivers through the trees and rattles the tape. The rookie flinches like the forest just whispered his name. I don't blame him. Nights like this make everyone feel watched. Any witnesses? I ask. Truck driver called it in, Lyle says. Said he saw a car pulled over, hazards on. Thought it was a breakdown. He drove past, saw someone on the ground, didn't stop, came back after the next exit. By then, nothing moving. Description of the car. Dark. Maybe a sedan. Maybe an SUV. Helpful, right? I give him a tired look. In the rain at night, every vehicle is a dark maybe. Azal. That's joke 1, gentle enough to keep us from drowning in the obvious. I circle the scene slowly, letting my eyes drift over details like I'm reading a page. The guardrail, the coin, the missing phone, the tidy placement, and then a smaller thing. A strip of cloth caught on a thorny weed near the ditch-dark fabric, torn clean, like it snagged during a quick exit. I pointed out. Bag that, too. Marisol marks it. You think it's from the shooter? Or from someone who wanted to look like the shooter? I say. Then, because my brain refuses to behave, I remember an old local custom I once heard about out here, something fringe and half superstitious. There's a group in the backcountry that used to seal a crime scene with a coin, believing metal could anchor a spirit so it wouldn't wander. Folk policing, they called it. No badges, no reports. Just rituals and whispered rules passed down like family recipes. It's ridiculous. It's also the kind of ridiculous detail that sometimes shows up in the middle of a very real case and dares you to ignore it. Coin placement could mean something, I murmur. Lyle snorts. Like what? Treasure map? Maybe, I say dry. X marks the guardrail. That's joke 2. I step back, take in the whole tableau again, and feel the case settle onto my shoulders like a wet coat. Whoever did this outlaw, imitator, accomplice, they wanted the scene to speak. They wanted us to read it. And the first sentence it offers is simple. Look at me. I glance down at the victim's face one last time. Respectful. And then I cover him again. The wind softens. The rain steadies. The highway hums in the distance like the world is trying to lull itself back to sleep. But I'm awake. I'm always awake when someone thinks they're above the law. Get me the truck driver's info, I tell Lyle, and I want every camera between here and the last exit. Gas stations, toll points, anything that blinks. What I wouldn't Devriota. And the coin? Marisol asks, sealing the evidence bag. I look at it, the scratched message trapped behind plastic, and I feel the faint, annoying tug of a puzzle trying to become personal. The coin goes to the lab, I say, and I'm going to start asking why someone would leave a signature in the rain unless they knew we'd still find it. Because the thing about outlaws who think they're untouchable, they don't hide, they perform. And the show, tonight, has only just begun. The coin goes into a bag, the tarp settles, and the rain keeps doing what rain does best, acting innocent while quietly rearranging the evidence. I'm back in my car with the heater running low, not because I'm cold, okay? Because I'm cold, but because warmth makes people talk, and I'm about to visit the only man who saw anything before the night swallowed it whole, the truck driver. The one who didn't stop until the next exit, which is a sentence that always lands like a rock in my shoe. I get it. Roadside scenes at night are risky. But there's a part of me that still wants to ask, gently, if the brakes on his conscience were also a little worn. I pull into a 24-hour diner that smells like coffee, fried oil, and someone's lifelong regret. The neon sign flickers as if even electricity is sleepy. Inside, the truck driver sits hunched over a mug, hands wrapped around it like it's the only stable thing in his universe. He's mid-50s, lined face, cap pulled low, eyes that keep sliding toward the window. I slide into the booth across from him, badge low, voice softer than my thoughts. I'm Detective Theo Morgan, I say. You're Earl. Yeah? He nods once. Yeah, thanks for coming in. He shrugs like thanks bounce off him. Didn't feel like sleeping anyway. Welcome to the club, I say. And that's joke one, because my chronic lack of sleep is basically my longest relationship. I don't pull out the hard questions right away. I let the diner's hum fill the space, let him sip, let his shoulders unclench by a millimeter. Then I start building the timeline with small, easy bricks. Tell me about your route, I say. Where you came from, where you were headed. Rough times. He talks, slowly at first, then smoother mile markers, exits, the place he stopped for fuel. He remembers the weather, remembers the sheen of the road, remembers the moment he saw hazard lights ahead like two nervous eyes blinking in the rain. I thought it was a breakdown, he says. Car pulled over, hazards on. I didn't see anyone waving. Speed? 60. Maybe less. Rain had me cautious. He looks at me like that should earn him a moral medal, and you see a person on the ground. Earl's jaw tightens. Not right away. I drove past. Then my headlights caught something, like a shape. I thought, no, that's a deer. Then you doubled back. After the next exit, he says again, like he's reciting it so it becomes less sharp. Right, I say. When you came back, hazards were gone? He nods. Gone. Car gone. Just the body. Any other vehicles? He hesitates. Maybe one set of taillights farther ahead. Hard to say. Rain makes everything smear. It's not much, but it's a start. A timeline begins as a sketch, not a portrait. Back at the scene, Marisol's tire cast is already in a protective box, a pale fossil of rubber pattern and weight distribution. I have her send it to the lab for comparison, not just against known tread databases, but also for the little things. Uneven wear, a nicked groove, the signature of a tire that's lived a particular life. People think tires are generic. They're not. They're like fingerprints that spend their days rolling through gravel and secrets. I start stacking data in my head like plates at a buffet I can't afford. Patrol call time, Earl's estimated pass-by, weather radar, the moment the coin likely got wedged into the guardrail seam. Then I do what modern detectives do when reality feels slippery. I ask the sky for breadcrumbs. Cell tower dumps. It's not magic, though. It feels like it when it works. We request a list of devices that ping the towers covering that stretch of road during a narrow window. We don't get names, not at first. Just numbers, identifiers, movement patterns. But patterns are what I eat for dinner, cold, with a side of paperwork, I sit at my desk later, coffee cooling beside me like it's given up on being helpful, and I watch the tower data populate. Dozens of hits, truckers, commuters, late-night wanderers. Someone streaming music too loudly. Probably. I narrow the window. 10 minutes before the call. 10 minutes after. Then I cross-reference with the victim's known number. Missing phone, sure. But phone companies love records, like I love silence. The victim's device goes dark right around the estimated shooting time. A second device appears in the area, pings once, then moves fast, too fast jumping towers like it's trying to outrun the rain. That one catches my attention. Outlaw or not, nobody is above the physics of cell coverage. Even legends have signal bars. I put in requests for traffic cams and gas station footage near the last exit Earl mentioned. Some cameras are pointed at the wrong angle, as if the universe is allergic to clarity. Some are down for maintenance, because of course they are. But one station's footage gives me a dark vehicle pulling in, hazards flashing, then a figure stepping out into the rain. It's grainy. The figure is a silhouette with purpose, and there's something about the way they move, unhurried, almost casual, that makes my skin tighten at the back of my neck. A performer. We still need a witness who saw more than a smear of taillights, so I canvass. That's the unglamorous detective diet. Knocking on doors, asking sleepy strangers if they heard anything, watched anything, noticed anything. You measure time in porch lights and half-open curtains. Most people give you shrugs. Some give you theories. A few give you the kind of information that makes your gut go quiet. At a gas station 2 exits down, the night clerk, a woman with tired eyes and a name tag that reads June like it's a dare, tells me she saw a man come in around the right time. Wet, she says, like he'd stood in the rain on purpose. Bought a pack of gum. Didn't chew it, just held it. Did he say anything? I ask. June leans on the counter. Asked if we had a payphone. I blink. A payphone? Yeah, she says, deadpan. Like it's 1,997 and we're all wearing frosted tips. Joke 2 slides out of me before I can stop it. Maybe he's bringing retro back. June doesn't laugh, but her mouth twitches. Anyway, he leaves. I look out the window. He's standing by a dark car. Hazards on. Then he drives off slow, like he wanted someone to see him. That matches the vibe like a key fits a lock. I take her statement, ask about cameras, collect the footage. Then, because my brain likes to chase weird threads, I ask her if anyone local still does that backcountry ritual stuff. Coins, omens, folk enforcement. June's eyes shift, just slightly. You mean the old metal anchors, the dead thing? I keep my tone neutral. I've heard it mentioned. She snorts. People will believe anything if it helps them sleep. There's a guy out by the quarry who swears you can find missing things with a bent coat hanger and a prayer. Calls it road dowsing. Says the earth points to truth. There it is. The quirky tidbit, served with gas station coffee energy. Fringe methods. Strange customs. I file it away. Not because I believe in coat hanger divination, but because belief itself leaves tracks. If someone wanted to send a message to locals, they'd use the language locals understand. By midnight, I have Earl's statement, June's statement, footage, tower data, and the creeping sense that someone is shaping this case like clay. Then the next morning, my phone rings. It's Lyle. His voice is lower than usual. Your truck driver? Earl. He's not answering calls. We went by his motel. Room's empty. Checked out? I ask. Paid cash. Left early. Clerk says he looked scared. I sit up straighter. Did he say where he was going? Clerk says he didn't say anything. Just kept glancing at the door. A witness who forgets isn't always someone with a bad memory. Sometimes it's someone with a good survival instinct. I drive to Earl's listed address anyway, because hope is a stubborn little thing. A small house on the edge of town. Porch sagging. Yard full of wind-blown leaves. Nobody answers. A neighbor peeks through blinds like the world is a reality show she didn't consent to. I knock again. Softer. Earl. It's Detective Morgan. Nothing. I step back, scan the porch. There's a fresh scuff mark near the door frame, like a heavy boot pivoted there, in a hurry. No forced entry I can see, but that doesn't mean much. People open doors when they're afraid, too. I leave a card. I return to my car. I call him again. Voicemail. I'm about to pull away when my phone buzzes a text from an unknown number. Stop asking about Earl. That's it. No punctuation. No warmth. Just a directive, like the law is a suggestion, and I'm the one being managed. I stare at it, thumb hovering, heart doing that slow, annoyed thud it does when someone thinks they can steer me. I run the number. It's a burner prepaid. Unregistered. The digital equivalent of a mask. I call June next. She answers on the second ring, breathless like she's been holding it all day. June, I say, did anyone come by after I left yesterday? A pause. Then softly, yeah, tell me. He came in. She says, same guy. Wet again. Bought another pack of gum. He told me. Her voice cracks. He told me to forget I saw him. Smiled while he said it like it was a joke. Withers lift. No one's quite sure whether witnesses like Earl disappear because they're threatened or because they're paid. I say, more to myself than to her. But either way, it's leverage. June whispers, he asked if I slept well. That sends a cold line down my spine. Performers don't just want to win, they want to be remembered. June, I say, voice gentle, if anyone comes back, don't engage. Call me. Immediately. She exhales. Detective. Is this the Outlaw? I look at the rain-streaked windshield, the gray sky pressing down, and the tower data still open in my mind like a map of invisible footsteps. I don't know yet, I admit. Investigators still can't agree if he's one man, a copycat, or a whole small ecosystem of fear. Joke 3 tries to float up something about ecosystems and my inability to keep a houseplant alive, but it dies on the way to my mouth. Some moments don't want humor. They want focus. I put the phone down. I pull up the tower pings again. That fast-moving device. That shadow car on the camera. That coin in the guardrail. Footprints in rain aren't always prints in mud. Sometimes they're in data. Sometimes they're in people. And right now, my key witness is vanishing like the night is swallowing him on purpose. So I do the only thing I can do. I tighten the timeline until it can't breathe, and I start chasing the spaces where someone thought I wouldn't look. Earl vanishing doesn't just add a problem, it adds a flavor. The kind that coats the back of your tongue and makes coffee taste like cardboard. Witnesses don't evaporate by accident, not the useful ones. Anyway, in the outlaw myth, the one locals whisper about like a campfire story with teeth, suddenly feels less like folklore and more like a living, breathing pressure in the room. By late afternoon, I'm in the county records basement, where the air smells like dust, toner, and decades of paper cuts. The lights hum like tired insects. A clerk wheels out a cart of old case files and gives me a look that says, if you die down here, it'll take us a week to notice. Comforting. I tell her, that's our brand. She replies, and I decide I like her immediately. I crack open the first folder. Assaults, robberies, arsons, anything in the last 10 years with a similar roadside setup, a missing phone, a staged feel. The Outlaw's alleged pattern is part violence, part performance. The reports read like half-finished novels. One deputy notes a strange token, left at a scene once a bottle cap flattened like a coin, once a motel keycard clipped in two, always something that says, I was here, and I wanted you to know. The case everyone remembers is the Rutherford Crossing incident 5 years back. A deputy shot at during a traffic stop, the suspect escaping into the tree line. In the file, there's a note about a scratched coin found days later, tucked into a fence post. The photo is grainy, but the scratches look familiar. Clustered lines, separated by a longer slash. My stomach does that small, unpleasant flip. If it's the same hand, it's not a copycat who just likes theatrics. It's someone who's been practicing for years. I bring the photo to the surface and lay it beside the new one from last night. The cluster spacing is nearly identical. It might still be imitation, but it's good imitation. And good imitation usually means obsession. I take the comparison to Captain Rourke, my boss, who has the posture of a man constantly bracing for the next headache. His office smells like old coffee and newer frustration. He studies the photos. You think it's him, he says, using the same careful not name Lyle used. I think someone wants us to think it's him. I correct. But the coin is a strong signal. Rourke sighs. Town's already buzzing. I got a call from the mayor's office asking if the highway outlaw is back. Tell them to enjoy their panic responsibly, I say. That sarcasm is why HR keeps a file on you, he mutters. But his mouth twitches. Joke one. Barely alive, but present. We brief the team. We map known incidents. The pattern is weirdly selective victims with no clear connection, scenes that scream, "Notice me," witnesses who later retract statements or vanish into silence. And then there's the bigger thing. Why he's never been caught. That's when I get introduced formally to the town's other reality. I head out to the west side, where the streets narrow, the houses lean, and the businesses look like they've been waiting for a better decade. I'm meeting a man named Cal Dern, an unofficial local historian who runs a pawn shop that doubles as a rumor exchange. Some cops hate places like that. I consider them community bulletin boards with locks. Cal is tall, wiry, with a mustache that feels like it has its own opinions. He greets me with a grin that's too friendly for a man who sells used knives for a living. "Detective Morgan," he says, "you're sniffing around the outlaw." "I'm sniffing around a murder," I reply. "The outlaw is just the cologne someone sprayed on it." Cal laughs. "Nice. But people don't care about the murder. They care about the legend." Inside the shop, the air is heavy with metal and old leather. Cal leads me past display cases, rings, watches, a guitar with one missing string, like it's permanently disappointed in itself, and into a back room that's basically a museum of local paranoia. He pulls out a binder labeled with thick marker, "The One Above the Law." Subtle. "I've been collecting stories," Cal says. "Not because I believe all of them, because I believe people." That's dangerously poetic for a pawnbroker, I tell him. "Don't tell anyone," he says. "I've got a reputation. Joke two." He flips pages, newspaper clippings, handwritten notes, old photos of roadside tape lines. He points at one, a bridge with a coin wedged into a bolt seam. Another, a burned-out shed with a motel keycard nailed to the doorframe. Always the token, always the performance. "People say he has rules," Cal says. "He doesn't hit kids, doesn't hit old folks, doesn't take from locals, only from outsiders or corrupt types." I let that hang. "And people believe that?" Cal shrugs. "People love a criminal with a code. Makes the fear feel organized." This is the part that always makes my skin crawl, not the violence, not even the arrogance. The way a town can adopt a predator, the way it adopts a mascot. It's easier to worship the storm than admit you can't stop it. "Why the silence?" I ask. "Why does everyone keep their mouths shut?" Cal taps the binder. "Because the outlaw isn't just one guy. He's an idea. And ideas don't get arrested. Plus," he lowers his voice, "there's the payoff rumors. People say he slips cash into mailboxes of folks who cooperate by not cooperating. Or he slips threats," I say. "Or both," Cal says. "Fear and money are cousins. No one's quite sure whether the silence comes from loyalty, fear, or plain exhaustion, but the effect is the same. My witness disappears, and the town shrugs like it's weather." Cal's eyes flick toward the door. "You hear about Earl?" My throat tightens. "Yeah, that's how it goes," Cal says softly. "People get brave for about a day. Then they remember they've got families. They remember their front doors don't have patrol cars parked in front of them all night. I want to argue. I want to say we can protect them. But I've been a detective long enough to know protection is a promise made out of limited resources and good intentions. Sometimes it holds, sometimes it breaks. Back at the station, we get an update from the lab. The tire cast matches a common all-terrain tread pattern, but with a distinctive chip in the outer groove. The kind of chip that happens when someone rides too close to gravel shoulders or cuts across construction zones like rules are optional. Rules are optional. There it is again. We run it through local traffic stops, old reports, anything with noted tire damage. It's a long shot. Long shots are basically my cardio. By evening, another piece falls into place. The victim's name finally surfaces: Darren Pruitt, mid-level contractor. Not from around here. Recent disputes over land use, small-time legal scuffles, nothing that screams roadside execution, but enough that money and resentment are in the room. I visit Darren's rental house. It's clean, Sparse. Temporary. The kind of place someone lives when they're always about to leave. On the kitchen counter, there's a stack of papers. Permits, maps, letters. The top letter is unsigned, but the message is clear. Stop digging. I feel my pulse slow. Digging. Quarry. West Side rumors. Coins as anchors. This is where the fringe tidbit crawls back into the case and sits on my desk like a stray cat demanding attention. June mentioned road dowsing, coat hangers, prayers. Cal mentioned the quarry. Indirectly, stories tend to orbit certain places like they have gravity, so I drive out there. The quarry is a yawning scar in the earth, filled with pools of rainwater that reflect the sky like broken mirrors. The air is colder here, and the silence is thick enough to chew. A rusted fence surrounds the perimeter, and someone has tied strips of cloth to the wire little flags, dark and damp, fluttering weakly. I've heard of this custom. People tie cloth to fences near places where someone died, believing it carries prayers or traps bad luck. It's not official, not legal, but it's real in the way belief is real. I step closer, flashlight sweeping. One strip of cloth looks familiar. Dark fabric, torn clean, like the strip we bagged at the roadside scene. My stomach drops into my boots. I photograph it. I don't touch it. Chain of custody matters, even when superstition is trying to audition for a lead role. I call Marisol to meet me with gloves and evidence bags. As we work, a truck rolls by on the access road, slow. Headlights cut through drizzle. It doesn't stop, but I feel the weight of being watched. Back at the car, my phone buzzes again. Unknown number. You're digging in the wrong place, detective. I stare at it, jaw clenched. The outlaw or whoever wears his mask wants me to feel managed. Wants the case to be a dance where he leads. Detectives still argue whether the best response to a performer criminal is to ignore the show or to outperform them. Tonight, I'm not sure which side I'm on, but I know one thing. If he thinks he's above the law, he's going to keep climbing until he falls. I start the engine and let the wipers beat time like a slow, impatient metronome. And as I pull away from the quarry, the town lights dim behind me, I can almost feel the silence closing in again like a mouth. But silence is just another thing to interrogate. The quarry fades behind me in the rearview mirror, but it doesn't leave my head. That torn strip of cloth on the fence keeps replaying like a looped gif, quiet, stubborn, and annoyingly confident it matters. Back at the station, the fluorescent lights feel too bright for a case that's built on shadows. Marisol meets me at the evidence intake window, and we do the little dance that keeps truth admissible. Gloves, bags, labels, seals, signatures. Chain of custody is the least glamorous part of detective work, which is probably why it's also the part that keeps lawyers from turning my life into a courtroom piñata. I watch Marisol log the cloth strip from the quarry fence, then the original strip from the roadside ditch. Same fabric weight, same jagged tear pattern. It's not proof yet, just rhyme. But rhymes become verses if you collect enough of them. Textile comparison, I ask. Microscope and fiber analysis, she says. If we're lucky, dye lot. If we're really lucky, unique stitching. Right. If we're extremely lucky, I add, it comes with a confession and a receipt. Marisol's mouth twitches. I'll check the receipt department. That's joke one, and it lands softly, like a blanket you don't fully trust. Captain Rourke pulls me into the briefing room with that familiar look, half worry, half irritation. Like I'm a stray dog he keeps feeding despite himself. We've got a name, he says, sliding a folder across the table. Darren Pruitt's last call wasn't to family. It was to a local towing company. Towing. I repeat. Of course it was towing. This case really wants to be a roadside cliché. Company's called Sutter Recovery, Rourke says. Owner-operator, Miles Sutter. The folder holds a driver's license photo, late 30s, buzz cut, eyes that look like they've practiced being unreadable. His record is mostly noise traffic stuff, minor altercations, nothing that screams murder. But people don't always advertise their worst hobbies. Why would Darren call a tow? I ask. Because his hazards were on, Rourke replies. And according to his call log, he placed that tow request at 10:41 p.m. That's within our window. My brain lines up the pieces. hazards, blinking in the rain, the staged feel, the perfect invitation for someone to pull over and help. It's a classic trick, one that works because humans are wired to respond to distress signals. Even criminals, sometimes especially criminals, ring Sutter in. I say, friendly at first. No cuffs. Let him think he's here to help us. Rourke nods. And Morgan, keep it tight. Town's already whispering about the outlaw. They whisper about him when someone sneezes too loudly. I say, but I keep my voice low. I'll keep it tight. 2 hours later, Miles Sutter sits in interview room 2 with his hands folded like he's waiting for a dentist. The room is painted that special shade of institutional beige that makes people feel like confessing just to change the scenery. I take the chair across from him, close enough to be conversational, not close enough to feel like I'm looming. I'm not trying to win a staring contest. I'm trying to let him talk himself into a corner and then act surprised when the walls appear. Mr. Sutter, I say, calm. I'm Detective Theo Morgan. Appreciate you coming in. He nods once. Captain said you had questions. Just trying to understand your night, I reply. Darren Pruitt called your company. Sutter's eyes flicker fast, controlled. Yeah, I got calls all the time. Did you respond? He shifts slightly. No. Weather was bad. I told him we were backed up. Backed up. I repeat, gentle. You told him that at 10:41? He frowns like he's doing math he hates. Sounds right. I slide a printed call detail report across the table. You answered at 10:41, 34 seconds. That's enough time to say, backed up. Sure. He glances at it, then back at me. Okay. There's no one dog swear. Then at 10:47, I continue. Your phone pings a tower covering the exact stretch of highway where Darren's found. Sutter doesn't move much, but his throat works. Tower coverage is wide. Phones do weird stuff. They do. I agree. But it's not just one ping. It's a pattern. It shows movement into that zone and then out again. Fast. Sutter leans back a fraction and finally lets some attitude leak into his voice. So what? You're saying I did it because my phone exists near a highway? I'm saying your phone behaves like it took a quick field trip. I say, and I'm curious why. Here's the grounded detective detail. I keep my questions narrow, one fact at a time. People can wriggle out of broad accusations. They struggle with specifics. It's the same principle as timeline building. Minutes are harder to lie about than feelings. Sutter's gaze drifts to the corner of the room where the camera sits like a silent insect. Am I under arrest? Not right now, I say. You're free to leave. I'd just rather you didn't. He snorts. That's funny. Not my funniest, I admit. Joke 2, light as a tap on the shoulder. I change lanes. Let's talk about your truck. He pauses. What about it? We found tire impressions at the scene. I say. All-terrain tread. Common. But with a chip in the outer groove. Sutter's jaw tightens. Lots of trucks have chips. True, I say. Which is why we're going to look at yours. He laughs. But there's no joy in it. You got nothing. Sometimes, when I'm interviewing someone like this, I use a quirky trick that old-school investigators swear by, not because it's mystical, but because it forces the brain to slow down. I ask them to tell the story backward. Start with the end of the night and walk me back step by step. Liars often build a story forward like a straight road. Backward makes them deal with details they didn't plan. Okay, I say, voice soft, almost sleepy. Tell me your night, but do it backward. Start with the moment you went to bed. Sutter blinks. Backward? Humor me, I say. It's a weird detective thing, like trench coats and chronic insomnia. Joke 3 because, yes, my wardrobe and my sleep schedule are basically evidence exhibits at this point. He hesitates, then starts. I go home, lock up the yard, feed my dog, watch TV, crash. What time do you lock up the yard? I ask. Midnight, he says too quickly. And before that? He glances down. I'm at my shop. And before that? He exhales hard. I'm driving around. Calls. Stuff. Back to 10:41. I say, gentle as rain. Darren calls. You say you're backed up. Then, according to your phone, you're near the highway scene at 10:47. Backward storytelling makes that gap feel loud. Sutter's eyes narrow. Phone data ain't perfect. No, I agree, but it's consistent, and there's something else. I slide a photo across the table, a still from June's gas station camera, grainy silhouette, but the posture is clear, someone standing near a dark vehicle with hazards on, unhurried. Sutter looks, and his face changes. Not much, but enough. That you? I ask. He pushes the photo back like it's sticky. Can't tell. That could be anyone. It could, I say. Except June remembers. She remembers the gum. She remembers you asked for a payphone. He goes still. You asked for a payphone. I repeat, soft. Who calls a payphone anymore unless they don't want their call traced? Sutter's mouth opens, closes. Then he leans forward, and the performance shifts. You're chasing a ghost, he says. You know that? This town's got you spun up on that outlaw story, and you're grabbing at whoever's nearby. There it is. The outlaw's shadow, whether Sutter is him, knows him, or fears him, using the myth like a shield. No one's quite sure whether the outlaw is one man, a copycat, or a whole network of people trading the same mask, I say. But I'm not interviewing a legend. I'm interviewing you. Sutter's eyes harden. You got a witness? You got a gun? You got my fingerprints on anything? Not yet. But then Marisol texts me from the lab hallway. Preliminary comparison. The cloth strip from the quarry fence and the roadside strip share the same synthetic blend and dye profile. Likely the same garment. I don't show the phone. I keep my face neutral. We have fabric, I say carefully. Torn fabric at the scene, and torn fabric at the quarry. Same material. Sutter's gaze flicks just once, toward his own jacket sleeve. That's the crack. Tiny, but real. You want to know what I think happened? He says suddenly, voice sharper. I think Darren pulled over because he thought help was coming. Maybe he called me. Maybe he called someone else. And then he ran into someone who doesn't like outsiders digging into local dirt. Local dirt, I echo. Sutter smiles like he's trying to scare me with a bedtime story. You're out here digging too, detective. And then he does something that makes the room feel colder. He tilts his head and asks, almost casually, where were you between 10:30 and 11 last night? I stare at him. It's a classic flip, the kind of move people use when they're either desperate or practiced. Suddenly, I'm the one being timed, questioned, measured. The outlaw if he's sitting in front of me, or if he's Coach Sutter, or if the myth itself has taught locals how to fight law wants me on defense. I was at the scene, I say evenly, with patrol, on camera, with phone logs, with other living humans. Sutter shrugs. Sure, just asking. Funny how quick you are with your answers. My phone buzzes in my pocket, another unknown number text. Tell me, detective, do you always accuse the wrong man first? The timing is too perfect. My skin prickles. Sutter watches my face like he's waiting for me to blink wrong. Investigators still can't agree if criminals like this coordinate their theatrics alone, or if they have helpers embedded in the rhythm of town life, clerks, drivers, anyone who can pass a message without leaving a trail. But someone is close enough to this room, close enough to my momentum, to poke me right when the leverage shifts. I stand slowly. Miles, I say, voice calm, almost soothing. This is your chance to help yourself. If someone used your truck, your phone, your presence, if someone leaned on you, you tell me now. His eyes flash with something fear, maybe, or anger at being seen too clearly. He swallows. You don't get it, he says softer. Out here, the law is just a uniform people wear. He's the one who decides what happens. I lean in just a fraction. Then tell me how he decides. Sutter's jaw tightens again, and for a moment I think he'll talk. Then he looks past me, toward the door, like he can feel the town listening through the walls. I want a lawyer, he says. I nod. Okay. I step out, letting the door shut gently behind me, and I breathe in the hallway air like it's cleaner than it is. In my pocket, my phone buzzes one more time. Stop digging, detective, or you'll be the next story, they whisper. I stare at the message until the words blur. Then I tuck the phone away and walk toward Rourke's office with the slow, steady gait of someone who refuses to be herded. Because if the outlaw thinks he's above the law, the worst thing I can do, apparently, is keep asking simple questions with complicated answers, and I'm very good at asking. By the time Miles Sutter asks for a lawyer, The interview room feels like it's still vibrating, like the air remembers tension even after people leave. I walk the hallway back to my desk with that slow, careful, calm detectives use when we're trying not to show the part of us that wants to throw a chair through a window. Not because I'm angry, exactly, because someone is close. Someone is watching the gears turn and tapping the casing at just the right moments to make it squeal. On my desk sits the coin evidence photo, printout scratches catching the light like tiny teeth, and on my phone, those burner texts sit like smudges I can't wipe off. Tell me, detective, do you always accuse the wrong man first? It's the kind of line someone writes when they're imagining themselves as the main character, which, frankly, is a disease. It's also a clue. Performers can't resist commentary. They need to narrate their own myth, because silence feels like death to them. Marisol catches me on my way to the lab. She has that expression technicians get when they're trying to look neutral and failing because science just handed them something interesting. Textile results, she says, handing me a preliminary report. Both cloth strips, same synthetic blend, same dye profile, same seam type. Likely the same garment. That's not nothing, I say. It's not, she agrees. And the seam type isn't cheap. Workwear. Maybe a jacket. Maybe coveralls. Workwear fits the quarry. Fits towing. Fits anyone who wants to move in the dark and look like they belong in the rain. And the coin? I ask. Marisol's eyes sharpen. That's where it gets weird. We step into her workspace where the air smells faintly of alcohol wipes and latex. She slides the coin under a microscope camera and brings the scratches up on a monitor. What look like messy gouges in the field become something deliberate at this scale, consistent depth, consistent angle, not random damage. Tool marks. Someone used a pointed object, with control. See the spacing? Marisol says. It's not just clusters. There's a repeating interval, like a structured code, like a cipher, I murmur. Maybe, she says. Or maybe it's a map grid reference, or a count. But here, she zooms in on the longest slash. This line is deeper. Different tool, maybe. Like it's a divider. I stare until my eyes feel dry. Can you decode it? Marisol lifts a shoulder. I can tell you it's intentional. Decoding is not exactly in my job description, unless the cipher is made of blood or fingerprints. Fair, I say. And thank you for not saying enhance while zooming. She smirks. I was tempted. That's joke one. Tiny. Necessary. I take photos of the magnified pattern and send them to a friend in the state intel unit who enjoys puzzles the way some people enjoy jogging voluntarily, for reasons I will never understand. Then I start looking at the local world through the lens of code, tokens, patterns, messages, Caldern's binder, June's payphone comment, Earl vanishing, Miles Sutter being both defensive and terrified, like a man stuck between guilt and gravity. And then, on the edge of my memory, that gas station clerk's throwaway line about road dowsing, a bent coat hanger, and a prayer. I should ignore it. I should file it under humans are weird and move on. But the case is weird in a deliberate way. So I drive back out toward the quarry at dusk when the light goes flat and everything looks like it's been drained of color. The fence line is still hung with cloth strips, prayers, warnings, maybe just someone's way of saying, something bad happened here and I don't want to forget. Marisol already bagged the strip that matched our scene fabric, but the others remain, fluttering like nervous hands. I park near the access road and walk toward a small shack that looks abandoned tin roof, peeling paint, padlock that's seen better decades. The ground is soft, muddy, pocked with footprints going in different directions. Too many to separate, too wet to read clearly. Still, I shine my light low and catch a few fresh impressions. Boot tread with a zigzag edge, heading toward the water pools. Then I hear it metal clinking softly. Not loud, not threatening, just present. I pivot my flashlight and see an older man standing by the fence. He's holding something in both hands, head bowed, like he's praying over a piece of scrap. He turns toward me slowly, as if he already knows I'm there. "Evening, detective," he says, voice rough as gravel. I freeze for half a heartbeat. "Do I know you?" He smiles without warmth. "Everyone knows everyone out here. if they pay attention. Name's Hollis. Folks call me the Dowser. Of course they do. Of course. June mentioned you, I say, keeping my tone neutral. Hollis lifts what he's holding. 2 bent rods, thin metal, maybe old coat hangers formed into L shapes. Dowsing rods, the kind people use to find water, lost objects, sometimes truth if they're feeling ambitious. You here to do this? I ask, gesturing lightly. He shrugs. Sometimes the ground remembers where people don't. Detectives still argue whether fringe methods like dowsing are coincidence, confirmation bias, or actual sensitivity to subtle environmental cues. Personally, I file it under humans like patterns, and sometimes we accidentally stumble onto real ones. But I'm not here to debate spiritual physics. I'm here because someone left me a coin, like a riddle. Hollis nods toward the quarry pools. You're looking for the one who thinks he's above it all. I'm looking for a murderer. I correct. He chuckles. Same thing. Round here. I step closer, careful not to cross the fence line. Why are you out here? He rotates one rod slowly between his fingers. Because this place is hungry, and when it gets fed, it don't stop. My skin prickles. You know about Darren Pruitt? Monning. Wenonigan. Hollis's eyes drift to the water. Outsider. Digging where he wasn't welcome. Who wasn't welcoming, I ask. Hollis lifts the rods again, holds them loosely. You want answers, detective, but you keep asking the wrong questions. Not who, where, I echo, and I feel the coin in my pocket of thoughts. He starts walking along the fence line, rods held forward. I follow on my side, slow and wary. The rods sway slightly. Every few steps, they twitch inward. Hollis murmurs to himself words I can't quite make out. Prayer? Counting? Performance? Hard to say. The wind carries it off, like it doesn't want me to hear. We reach a section of fence near a gate that's chained shut. The rods cross sharply, forming an X. Hollis stops. Here, he says. I stare at the ground. Mud, gravel, weeds. Nothing obvious. Here what? I ask. He lowers the rods and points with one gnarled finger. Ground's disturbed. Not old. Not natural. I shine my flashlight, angle it low. At first, I see nothing. Then the faint outline of a patch where mud is packed differently, as if someone pressed it down. Footprints around it are smeared, but the edges suggest repeated steps. Someone buried something, I murmur. Hollis's face remains unreadable. Maybe. Or maybe they hid something and thought the earth would keep its mouth shut. I crouch. Careful. If you knew this, why didn't you call it in? Hollis looks at me like I've asked why wolves don't file reports. Because I like breathin', and because out here, folks got their own laws. There it is again, the town's silence. Spoken out loud. I stand. Hollis, if you're implying you know who did this. He cuts me off with a small shake of his head. No one's quite sure whether it's one man or a whole shadow. But I know this. He leaves signs, coins, scratches, like he's talking to someone. To who? I ask. Hollis's eyes finally meet mine, and they're tired. To the law, to the town, to himself. Well, then his gaze shifts past my shoulder, and his body stiffens just slightly. A car is rolling up the access road behind me. Slow. No headlights at first. Then they click on bright, sudden, like stage lights. My heart rate stays steady, but my nerves stand up like they've been called to attention. I turn. Dark vehicle. Hazards flash once, then stop. The car idles. A figure steps out, silhouette against the beams. Workwear. Hood up. Unhurried. A performer. My phone buzzes in my pocket, like a whisper that arrives early. Look down. Against every instinct, I glance. A text from the burner number. You're standing on the answer, detective. I look back up. The figure is still there, just inside the light, as if refusing to fully enter the scene. Hollis backs away from the fence, disappearing into shadow, like he's done this dance before. Hey, I call, raising my voice over the wind. Police. Stay where you are. The figure lifts one hand, not in surrender, but in a slow, almost polite wave, and then he turns. gets back into the car, and drives off with the smooth confidence of someone who believes no one can touch him. I sprint to my car, but by the time I hit the ignition, the vehicle's already a pair of receding taillights. The access road splits, and the darkness swallows him like a curtain. I slam my palm against the steering wheel once softly, because I'm trying to be an adult, and then I breathe. Joke 2 tries to appear. Something about cardio being optional until criminals force it on you. It's not funny enough yet, but it's trying. Back at the fence line, I shine my light at the disturbed ground again. I call it in. We'll need a warrant, a proper dig, proper documentation, no shortcuts, no hero shovels in the dark. That's how evidence turns into confetti in court. Still, I can't shake the feeling that I just met the outlaw or someone wearing his posture like a costume. And if he's bold enough to show up while I'm there, bold enough to text me in real time, then he's not just taunting, he's steering. The question is, steering me toward what? Or steering me away from what? Either way, the coin scratches aren't just a signature anymore. They're a conversation. And tonight, he just spoke louder than ever. The quarry goes quiet again after the car disappears, but my nerves don't get the memo. The fence line keeps fluttering those damp cloth strips like the place is trying to wave me off. Hollis, the dowser, melts into darkness the way men do when they've survived too many local rules, and I'm left staring at a patch of disturbed ground that suddenly feels like it's glowing even though it's just mud and gravel and the weight of a message. You're standing on the answer, detective. Yeah, and I'm also standing in a place where answers can turn into headlines if I'm sloppy. So I do the unsexy thing. I back away, I call it in, and I get a warrant the proper way. No midnight digging with a flashlight in a hero complex. I like my cases to survive contact with a courtroom. By the next afternoon, we're back at the quarry with a small team, a judge-signed warrant, and enough documentation to make a librarian blush. Marisol photographs the ground from every angle before we touch it. We grid the area with string. We measure. We log. It's slow, and it's boring, and it's exactly how you keep a defense attorney from tap dancing on your mistakes. We dig carefully thin layers, like we're peeling back the earth's memory. The rain has packed the mud tight, but not tight enough to hide everything. After about a foot, the shovel edge clicks against something hard. Marisol stops us with a hand. "Trowels," she says, like we're suddenly in an archaeology documentary instead of a murder investigation. We switch to hand tools and ease the object free. It's a metal ammo tin sealed, old, the kind someone might stash because it's waterproof and it looks ordinary if you don't ask why it's buried at a quarry gate like a secret trying to sleep. Inside, a cheap prepaid phone wrapped in plastic, a small spiral notebook, and a handful of coins tarnished, scratched, some blank, some marked with those same clustered lines. My throat goes tight in that quiet way it does when a case stops being abstract and starts being personal. Bag everything separately, I tell Marisol. Photograph each coin. Gloves, new tools for each item. Because cross-contamination is how good evidence becomes a sad little shrug. The notebook pages are damp at the edges, but readable. It's not a confession. It's worse because it's practical. Names, dates, short notes like paid and quiet and moved. There are initials I recognize from local business rosters, a couple that match people who've been unusually unhelpful when I canvassed, and one that makes my stomach drop. Earl. No one's quite sure whether witnesses vanish because they're threatened, paid, or relocated by someone who thinks the town belongs to him. But seeing Earl's initial in that notebook makes the uncertainty feel thinner, like paper held up to light. The prepaid phone is the next gift. Marisol can't crack it on the spot, but she photographs it, seals it, logs it, and I watch the evidence tape go on like it's a promise. Captain Rourke meets me back at the station, eyes sharp. "This is big," he says. "It's leverage," I reply. "And bait." Rourke studies me. "You're thinking trap." "I'm thinking he's already playing with me in real time," I say, tapping my own phone where those burner texts live. "He likes control, so we give him something to control. We build it the way you build anything that needs to hold, carefully and in layers. First layer, marked evidence. We pick one scratched coin from the tin, one with the clearest cluster pattern, and we treat it like it's radioactive. Marisol dusts it with a trace UV powder that won't show under normal light, but will light up like a confession under a black light. Then we photograph it again, bag it again, log it again, and I make sure only a small circle knows the exact marking method. Second layer, surveillance. We place covert cameras along the quarry access road and the gate area, nothing flashy, nothing that screams police are here. We add a couple of motion sensors. We coordinate with a state unit to monitor the cell tower sector for any device that behaves like our mystery phone did: short ping, quick movement, burner-like behavior. It's not perfect, but perfection is mostly a fairy tale told by people who've never tried to get usable footage from a gas station camera in the rain. Third layer, the canary trap. It's an old investigative trick that sounds like a bedtime story until it works. You give different versions of the same sensitive detail to different people, and you wait to see which version leaks. The leak tells you who's talking, so I do it, quietly. To one deputy, I mention we found a gun. To another, I mention a notebook. To a third, I mention coins. To Rourke, I keep the full truth and the UV detail locked down. Each person gets a slightly different breadcrumb. Same case, different flavor. If the outlaw is steering me, I'm going to steer back. And yes, I'm aware this means I'm now playing psychological chess with a man who leaves scratched coins and guardrails, which is not how I pictured my career when I was younger and more naive and thought sleep was a thing adults did regularly. That's joke one. It's also a cry for help, but we'll keep it light. Night falls again, and the Badlands beyond the quarry feel like a different planet: scrub grass, low hills, the kind of emptiness that makes every sound feel important. Our stakeout position is tucked behind a line of dead equipment near the access road. I'm in an unmarked vehicle with binoculars, a thermos of coffee that tastes like someone threatened beans into surrender, and a radio that keeps hissing like it's telling secrets. Marisol isn't with us tonight, lab work calls, but Lyle is, plus 2 deputies on perimeter. Rourke stays back at the station coordinating. Stakeouts are 90% waiting, Lyle whispers, and 10% pretending you're not eating your third granola bar out of sadness. I whisper back, joke 2, whispered because the night is the kind of quiet you don't want to insult. Hours pass. Wind moves through the quarry fence cloth like nervous breathing. A coyote yips somewhere far off, which feels less like wildlife and more like the universe providing spooky ambiance on a budget. Then my phone buzzes. Unknown number. Nice cameras. My blood goes cold, but my face stays calm. I don't touch the screen for a second. I let the message sit there like a spider on the wall. He knows, I whisper into the radio. Lyle shifts, scanning. Where? Somewhere close enough to be smug. The access road remains empty until it isn't. A dark vehicle rolls into view, slow, unhurried. Hazards blink once, then click off. The car stops near the chain gate, right where the disturbed ground was. Headlights stay on, turning the fence into a bright lattice of wet metal. A figure steps out, hood up, workwear, the same controlled posture like he's stepping onto a stage and expects applause. I raise the binoculars. He doesn't rush. He walks straight to the gate area and crouches, hands moving near the ground. If he's retrieving something, he's careful. If he's placing something, he's theatrical. Then another set of headlights appears behind him. Not ours. A vehicle approaches from the opposite direction, rolling up with the casual confidence of someone who belongs here. For a heartbeat, I think it's a local who took a wrong turn. Then the light bar flicks on in a short, controlled burst, just enough to identify it. A patrol unit. My stomach tightens, because nobody on perimeter called in a unit moving in. The patrol car slows as it nears the gate. The hooded figure straightens, turns unstartled, and takes 3 steps back, as if he expected the interruption. And then the patrol car stops at an angle that gives the hooded man space. Not a block, not a challenge. Space. Lyle's voice is a strained whisper in my ear. That's our unit. I can't see the driver clearly from this angle, but I see the outline of a shoulder, a head tilt, the small gesture of a hand inside the cab like a signal. The hooded figure lifts his own hand in response. A slow, almost friendly motion. Betrayal doesn't always look like a villain twirling a mustache. Sometimes it looks like a car stopping where it shouldn't and a conversation happening without words. The hooded figure reaches down, grabs something from the ground, small, metallic, then walks back to his vehicle. Calm, clean, no panic. He gets in and drives away, tires barely splashing. The patrol unit stays still for 2 long seconds, then pulls forward, turns around, and drives off the way it came. Light bar dark again like it was never there. My hands are steady, but my chest feels like it's filled with cold water. I exhale into the radio. "Rourke," I say softly. "We've got a problem." His voice crackles back. "Talk to me." "A patrol unit just rolled up on our trap site," I say. "Not called in. Not on perimeter. The suspect didn't run. He coordinated." Silence on the line just a beat, then Rourke's voice returns, low and controlled. "Copy. Stay put. Don't spook anyone. I don't chase. Not because I don't want to. Because if someone inside the chain is tipping him, a chase is just free entertainment and possibly a way to get us hurt in the Badlands with no witnesses but the wind. Instead, we move like the law is still the law, even if someone's trying to wear it like a costume. When the area clears, we approach the gate under cover protocols. Lyle watches the road. I go to the exact spot where the hooded figure crouched. Marisol's UV powder should have marked the coin if he touched it, but the spot is bare. The coin is gone. And that's the point, isn't it? The trap wasn't just to catch him stealing. It was to prove he can reach into our evidence trail and pluck what he wants unless we seal every seam. Back in the vehicle, I click on a small blacklight flashlight we brought for exactly this reason and shine it over the door handle area of the gate and the damp fence wire where hands might have steadied themselves. A faint glow blooms thin streaks, partial prints. Whoever handled the area has UV powder on them now, whether they know it or not. I swallow. Slow. No one's quite sure whether betrayal in cases like this comes from corruption or terror. I whisper, more to myself than to Lyle. But it always leaves residue. Lyle looks at me, eyes wide. So what now? I stare into the dark road where the vehicles vanished, and I feel the case shift like a chessboard where someone just revealed they can move my pieces too. Now, I say softly, we stop pretending the outlaw is outside the law, because tonight, the law just drove up in a marked unit and blinked first. By the time dawn starts to bleach the quarry sky into a tired gray, I'm back at the station with a headache that feels professionally earned. The kind of headache you get when your case stops being Find a Murderer and becomes Find the Murderer and the Leak and the puppet strings and maybe also your faith in humanity. The stakeout doesn't give me an arrest, it gives me proof. Proof that someone inside the chain of custody or close enough to wear the uniform just escorted our suspect through the back door of the night. And the worst part? He did it with style. Nice cameras. That text sits in my mind like a thumbprint. The outlaw, whether he's one man or a whole roomer with legs, wants me to know he can see. He wants me to feel small, which is adorable, honestly, in the same way a mosquito is adorable right before you slap it. That's joke one, and it's also my last shred of patience trying to stay polite. Captain Rourke meets me in his office, door shut, blinds half drawn. He looks older than he did yesterday, like the case has been quietly stealing years. "You're telling me a marked unit showed up without dispatch?" he asks. "I'm telling you, it rolled up like it had an appointment," I say. And the suspect didn't flinch. Rourke rubs his face. "Who was it?" I couldn't ID the driver from my angle, I admit. But we can narrow it. Units with access, shift logs, GPS. If it was turned off, that's its own statement. Rourke nods slowly. "We do this quietly. Internal affairs can come in if we have to, but I want control of this until we know who's dirty. Or scared," I add. Rourke's eyes meet mine. Or scared. Detectives still argue whether corruption and coercion are separate categories in small towns because fear can look like greed when you're watching from the outside. But either way, we have a leak, and we have UV residue. The blacklight trick isn't magic, but it's practical. The suspect touched something dusted with trace powder. That powder can transfer to fabric, skin, steering wheels, door handles, anything he touched afterward. If we find the car, or the patrol unit, or the helper, we can light them up like a confession in a haunted house. So we pivot fast, but quiet. We pull every patrol unit that could have been near the quarry between midnight and 2 a.m. for routine equipment checks. No sirens, no announcements, just an early morning shuffle of vehicles into the maintenance bay like it's the most normal thing in the world. Lyle helps, jaw clenched so tight it could cut wire. Guys are gonna notice, he mutters. They'll notice if we act weird, I say. So we act boring. Nothing scares guilty people like paperwork. Joke 2 delivered without a smile, because paperwork is a weapon and I'm not afraid to use it. One by one, units roll through. Mechanics check tires, fluids, lights, legit tasks. Meanwhile, I walk the row with a small blacklight flashlight tucked in my palm like a secret. I'm not searching the obvious stuff. I'm searching the places hands go without thinking. Door handles, steering wheels, gear shifts, trunk latches. Unit 3B, 14, clean. Unit 2, C, 9, clean. Unit 5, a 2, a faint glow on the driver's side handle, but it's patchy, inconsistent, the kind you can get from cleaning products. False positives happen. I keep moving. Then we get to Unit 4D21. I sweep the blacklight over the driver's side handle, and there it is, thin, clear streaks, like someone wiped their fingers there in the rain. My breath goes shallow. I sweep the light across the steering wheel. More faint, glowing smears. Gear shift. Center console. A little crescent on the inside of the door frame where a sleeve might have brushed. This isn't detergent. This is touch. Rourke stands beside me, face hardening. Whose unit is that? I keep my voice low. Deputy Nolan Price. Rourke's eyes narrow. Price is on day shift. Actor servanter. And he wasn't supposed to be anywhere near the quarry last night, I say. We don't confront him in the bay. Not yet. Performers love confrontation. Leaks love time to warn their partners. We do this like surgery. Rourke calls Price in under the pretense of a routine debrief. I watch through the observation window as Price sits in interview room 1. He's mid-30s, clean-cut, polite in the way some people are polite when they think manners are armor. I go in alone at first, because sometimes a single voice makes it harder for someone to latch onto the system as their enemy. I set a folder on the table, not too thick, not too thin, just enough to look like a weight. Nolan, I say relaxed. Long night? He smiles faintly. Not for me. I was home. Home, I echo. Between midnight and 2. Yeah, he says. Watch TV. Fell asleep. I tilt my head. Tell it backward. He blinks. Excuse me? Backward timeline, I say. Start with waking up, then the last thing you remember, then the thing before that. It's a weird detective habit. His smile tightens. I don't see why. Humor me, I say softly. It'll go fast if it's true. He exhales, annoyed, then tries. I wake up. Morning. I fall asleep around. He pauses. Around midnight. And right before you fell asleep? I ask. TV, he says. What show? His eyes flick upward as if answers live on the ceiling. Some sports thing. Which sport? I ask, still gentle. His jaw tightens. Why does it matter? Because liars hate specifics. Because truth has texture. I slide a printed still photo across the table. Unit 4D21 in the maintenance bay with the UV smear photo attached. No fancy labels, no dramatic red circles. Just the evidence speaking in its own quiet language. Nolan, I say, your unit has trace powder on it, the kind we used at the quarry gate last night. His face drains a shade. Then he tries to cover it with irritation. I don't know what you're talking about. I think you do, I say. And I think you're going to tell me why your car rolled up on my trap without dispatch. His lips press together. His eyes flick toward the door. The tiniest tell an animal searching for an exit. No one's quite sure whether you did this because you're dirty, I add, voice steady, or because someone made you afraid. His shoulders sag just a fraction. Then he laughs, weak and bitter. You think I wanted this? I don't answer. I let the silence do the work. Silence is heavy. People fill it. Price rubs his hands over his face. He came to my house, he says, voice cracking. A week ago. No mask. Just standing on my porch like he owned it. My pulse slows. Cold. Who came? Price swallows. The outlaw, or whoever he is. He said my name like we were friends. What did he want? I ask. Price's eyes glisten. He wanted access. He wanted to know what you know, when you know it. He said if I helped, my wife wouldn't have to worry on night drives. My jaw tightens so hard my teeth ache. He continues, words spilling now. He told me where my kids' bus stops. He told me my wife's favorite gas station coffee. He wasn't guessing. That's the sick genius of it. He doesn't just threaten. He demonstrates he's already inside your life. It's psychological leverage, and it works because humans are fragile when it comes to the people we love. Last night, Price says, I got a text. He said go to the quarry at 1:30. Stop near the gate. Don't turn on the bar long. Don't get out. Just make him comfortable. Comfortable, I repeat. Price nods miserably. He said if he sees the unit, he'll know it's safe. Like a signal. Like permission. Betrayal, as a traffic light. I take a slow breath. Where is Earl? I ask. Price blinks. Earl? You know the witness, I say. Truck driver. Missing. Price shakes his head fast. I don't know. I swear. He didn't tell me that. Investigators still can't agree if Price's kind of cooperation forced, terrified is morally different than paid corruption. But the case doesn't care about moral comfort. It cares about results. And right now, Price is the first real crack in the outlaw's wall. Rourke steps in then, controlled fury in his posture. Nolan, he says, you're suspended pending investigation. You're going to stay right here. Price nods. Broken. I'll do whatever you want. Just keep them safe. Rourke looks at me, and I see the decision forming behind his eyes. We don't just need an arrest. We need to end the myth. Because as long as the myth breathes, the town will keep suffocating. We bring in state support quietly, no sirens, no press release. We use Price's phone, under warrant, to trace the burner message routes. Prepaids still leave patterns. Purchase locations, activation pings, tower hops. We overlay them with our earlier fast-moving device from the cell dump. It matches. Same behavior, same corridor, same rhythm. Then we revisit the notebook from the ammo tin. Names, initials, dates. We cross-reference with local property disputes, quarry permits, Darren Pruitt's paperwork, the stop digging letter. It points to a narrow list of people with motive and access: landholders, contractors, a private security outfit that patrols the quarry boundary for the owners. That last one is interesting because private security is often just people with uniforms who didn't go to police academy. We pull records. One name keeps surfacing. Gideon Rusk, supervisor for Ridgeline Security. Former corrections officer. Reputation for being charming in the way snakes are charming when they're still. We don't rush to grab 'em. We build the net. We set up a final meeting, one more stage, but this time, we design the exits. We leak only to Price, under controlled conditions that we're moving the remaining coins in the notebook to a different facility that night. We tell him a route and a time that are slightly wrong, a canary inside a canary. If the outlaw acts on it, we know he's still listening. At 11:20 p.m., our decoy transport rolls out an unmarked van with 2 plainclothes heading along the leaked route. Hidden teams shadow it from distance. Helicopter support stays off until we need it. Lights off. We're not trying to scare him away. We're trying to let him commit. At 11:34, the dark vehicle appears hazards, blinking once, like a signature hello. It follows the van at a respectful distance, not tailgating, not rushing, confident. We let it. A mile later, where the road narrows between scrub and rock, the dark vehicle moves up alongside, trying to box the van in. That's when we light the world up: sirens, strobes, units sliding in from hidden pull-offs like a door slamming shut. The dark vehicle swerves, tries to break through, but the net is layered. Spike strips bite the tires. The car fishtails, skids, stops in a spray of gravel. I step out of my vehicle, weapon ready but low, voice loud and clear. Driver, hands where I can see them. The door opens slowly. A man steps out in workwear, hood down now, and for a second, the myth evaporates into something painfully human. Gideon Rusk. He smiles at me like we're meeting for coffee. "Detective Morgan," he says, almost warmly, "you really do like to dig." I keep my voice steady. "Hands up, Gideon." He raises them, theatrical as ever, palms open. "You know what's funny?" he says. "All this for a contractor who didn't know when to stop. And for Earl," I say. His eyes flicker. Earl made choices. I feel anger, pulse, controlled. "Where is he?" Gideon's smile tightens. "Safe enough. Somewhere. He won't talk." That's not an answer I like, but it's a lead. And he said it on camera, with witnesses, because performers can't resist speaking. We cuff him. We Mirandize him. We transport him. The myth goes into the back of a cruiser like any other man. Later, under interrogation with counsel present, because reality is not a movie Gideon tries to keep performing, he frames himself as a necessary force. He calls the town weak. He calls the law a costume. He hints at a network, then backpedals, then hints again. He's slippery, but we've got more than charm can undo. The notebook, the coins, the tower patterns, Price's statement, the decoy attempt, the vehicle, the tire chip matching the cast, and once the lab finishes UV residue linking him to the quarry gate touchpoint and likely to the patrol unit contact chain. And Earl? Earl is found 2 days later in a rural cabin outside county lines, alive, shaken, and furious at himself for being scared. He's been kept there by intimidation, not chains told the town would handle him if he talked. He gives a full statement when he sees Gideon's mugshot and realizes the boogeyman bleeds. Investigators still can't agree whether Gideon truly worked alone or had a broader support web, because myths attract followers like porch lights attract moths. But the core is clear. He wasn't above the law. He just acted like the law was beneath him. Wind down. The paperwork doesn't feel like victory. It feels like the slow exhale after holding your breath too long. The station settles into that late-night quiet again, but it's a softer quiet now, less like a mouth closing, more like a blanket being pulled up. I sit at my desk with the case file open, pages stacked neatly, coins sealed behind plastic like they've finally lost their voice. Outside, the rain has stopped, and the streetlights make the wet pavement glow warm instead of threatening, like the town is remembering how to be gentle. Earl's safe. Nolan Price's family is under protection. Gideon Rusk sits in a cell that doesn't care about his stories, and the quarry still scarred, still hungry-looking in daylight, can't whisper as loudly when the man who fed it is gone. I think about how fear travels through communities, how it teaches people to lower their eyes, how it convinces them that silence is the same thing as safety. Then I think about how one crack, one witness, one residue smear, one coin pulled from the dirt can let light back in. My shoulders loosen for the first time in days. The case isn't just closed on paper. It's closed in the way my breathing finally evens out. The streets outside are just streets again, not stages. The interrogation room is just a room, not a theater. And you, wherever you are listening, get to let your own mind unclench. Because tonight, the bad man doesn't get to roam in your imagination anymore. So let the clues rest. Let the questions drift off like leaves on a slow river. Let the dark corners stay dark without feeling dangerous. In the quiet, you can hear your own steady breathing, the soft hum of a fan, the far-off comfort of ordinary life continuing. And as your eyes grow heavy, remember, the law isn't perfect, but it's real, and sometimes that's enough to make the night feel safe again.